Hey Wednesday, do you think you might be autistic? Typical, you're asking the wrong question. Okay, I just love thinking of you as autistic in my headcanon, and nevermore as a metaphor for the neurovariant community as a whole, but like always, you're missing the most important part. Which is? If we assume Wednesday is autistic, which would make sense if creator Tim Burton's rumored autism is actually true, the question you should be asking should be, is Wednesday an equitable representation of autism? And is she? Since Wednesday has become autistic and much of cultural headcanon will operate as if that was the original intent, allowing that this may not be the case. Okay, but what's your verdict? Is Wednesday an equitable autism representation? Yes. And no. There are a few things that bump for me. Anything that's exceptionally problematic or to get upset over? Certainly not. These conversations are just important to improve representation. So what would you have done, say, if you were in the writer's room? Culturally, we're past the need for all representations to be coded. Society is ready. No, it needs canonized autistic heroes. Coded? Canonized? What? Coded like code. Hidden for people to decipher and guess at. I thought you said that... I said it backwards in my last video. Dyslexia. Canon is explicit, blatant, spelled out. So canonized autistic is a character who is explicitly revealed to be autistic in the story, so there is no question in the audience's mind. Coded is metaphors and symbolism. Culturally, we need canonized, explicitly spelled out autistic characters. Disabled representation as a whole needs to be more canonized. Wouldn't that be writing it a bit on the nose? Not if you tie it to character and theme. Imagine if Wednesday were in one of her therapy appointments and the therapist says, "Wednesday, I think you might have autism spectrum disorder." And Wednesday responds with, "My whole family is autistic. Leave it to so-called medicine to pathologize a valid neurotype as a disorder. You can't fix me. There's nothing to fix." Damn! I hope they do something like that in season 2! Well, for a show about a very unconventional person, her character arcs were very conventional and tropey. How so? These all weave and interconnect with each other, so try to keep up. First, Wednesday is a loner who likes her solitude, but instead of being original and subverting that trope that everyone needs to be sociable and have a group of friends, it would have been much more interesting to redefine what friendship can look like. I don't follow. What does a true friend look like to someone who prefers their solitude? Is it someone who perpetually hounds them to be social, colorful, extroverted? Or is it someone who respects the person's boundaries and gives them space while being available for when they need help? Imagine at the end, instead of having Wednesday hug Enid back, Enid actually respects her friend and doesn't touch her. Imagine coming up with a creative way to show true friendship that is respectful of a person's boundaries around physical contact and social interactions. That could have been so satisfying. The goal isn't to get autistic people to want physical affection. The way you describe it, it isn't anything we've seen before. It would have subverted the trope and elevated the theme to something deeper and more meaningful. Okay, but I see a problem with that. If this is autistic representation, not all autistics are like that. Many autistics are incredibly social and some even love physical contact. Which is why you write in another character who is canonized autistic who has those personality traits. Enid? Maybe a little too obvious of a choice, but yes, that could have worked. Another option could have been Eugene. Oh, the beekeeper friend, but he's kind of a loner too. The show already wrote him as someone who really wants friends but struggles to have any. With a few minor tweaks, this could have been amplified tenfold, but instead he too is a bit of a tropey character. Imagine the conversation they could have had about the different types of bees, how some bees live in colonies, and others are solitary. And then they could discuss how Wednesday is a solitary bee being forced to live in a colony, and he is a social bee being forced to live a solitary life.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And it would have pointed out the hypocrisy of everyone trying to force Wednesday to be social but not caring at all for Eugene, which also reinforces the problematic associations of relative physical attractiveness with popularity.
Dude, yes! Okay, so if we're writing Wednesday as being a true loner who doesn't have to embrace societal expectations of friendship, how would you have handled the romantic element?
This was the most conventional and frustrating part. Can we please have autistic representation who are aro-ace?
Arrow, huh?
Aromantic, asexual, not interested, and in some cases even repulsed by romance and or sex. Aro-ace.
So if Wednesday were Arrow Ace, which they kind of established as her leaning that way at the start of the show, she could have had even more friction with her mom's desires for her to have the same kind of love experiences as her mom did.
Imagine keeping the boys who are romantically interested in Wednesday, but Wednesday has no reciprocal feelings. Ever. Instead, she uses those boys' romantic feelings to get what she wants, which plays into her true character arc of learning to respect other people's boundaries rather than the false character arc that we currently have of her needing to change who she is in order to become romantic and have lots of friends and be more physically affectionate. But she's pretty after all. Hollywood can't waste her physical attraction on being aro-ace, so they'll just make Eugene to be loveless.
Wow, yeah. And you know what strikes me so much about all of this is how minor the tweaks are to the writing, and yet how vastly different some of the themes and the impact of the show would be.
Maybe the writers of season 2 will be inspired by some of these ideas. I am looking forward to the second season. Despite my ideas for how to make the show even better, I thoroughly enjoyed it, as it is.
Hey, you look pretty good in that eyeshadow.
What did you think of the autistic representation in Wednesday? What would you like to see?